So it's about time to do a follow-up video on this 1968 Seiko 5126-8080. Just to recap, these were introduced in 1968, second half of 1968, as it happens. And they were one of Daini's sport diver lines in the late 60s. Seiko had a whole bunch of sport divers. They did a lot of this sort of 70-meter depth, like sport watches for surfing or snorkeling or scuba diving, and they made a lot of them. The very last one was Daini as well, but Suwa and Daini started out making these at the same time. I'd never really heard of this model before. I'd seen pictures of it, but I hadn't really paid too much attention. I didn't know that many people who had them. So I kind of started thinking about it a little bit, and then I was looking through catalogs, and I found a really good picture of this, and I was looking at it, and I was like, that looks like a 62 MAS style. Like, look at the 5 and 10 markers. Well, I'd like to have a follow-up video. I got this in from Japan last week, and over the weekend I took some time and I went through it. The watch was totally original, hadn't been touched as far as I could tell, no service marks. I hadn't really ever thought about these before. I never really paid a whole lot of attention to them, in part, I don't know, because I was so Suwa focused. Everything is Suwa focused. 6105, 6309, 62 MAS. Like, ooh, Suwa. Nothing wrong with Suwa. But man, these 62 MASs, people sure do love them. That's mine. This light doesn't make it look so hot, but it's actually not a bad watch at all. The original owner, whoever that person was, started getting some water intrusion on the loom. It started to turn down, started to get black. And what they did is they painted over the entire tops of the markers with some kind of satin finished clear matte. And it's not important enough for me to go ape on to get that off. So it has an unusual look, but it's original, well, except for that. But in any case, these go for a lot of money. Those dials are super hard to repair correctly, and if they're damaged, it's a real problem. I always thought that they were so elegant. You can't really see it here because the markers are sort of hazy, but the interior on the 510, 20, 25, 35, 40, 50, whatever, you'll notice that they point inwards like so. You can't really see them here. But I was looking at this one, and I'm like, there it is. See those markers? See how they point to the inside? I'm like, that's really funky. And I'm like, okay. And I spent some time researching these and looking for a good one online that was in the condition that I liked. And so here's how it arrived. And after service, there it is. I have to go back in. The 5126 movements, because this has the 6217, which is kind of a different beast than this one. 5126 is a lot like a Swiss watch. It has specifically, because you can't really see it here, but the winding mechanism is Swiss style, which means it's got reduction gears and all this other kind of stuff. It's not just the magic lever, the Paul lever. So what that meant is that you could have, instead of having a high stack in the middle for the post for the winding weight, everything is compressed down because it's all sideways to itself. It makes a lower movement. It also makes it, I forgot, kind of a bear to service. These, bear for me because I just went into it and I'm like, I've done these a bunch of times before. 5126s, man, they're a little touchy. And so it took me a while, most of the weekend, to go through this movement. There was some water damage to it, not a lot. The loom is original. The hour and minute hand loom just literally I couldn't save it. I almost saved it, and then it was too damaged and it just destroyed itself. So that's a reloom I did to match that loom. But okay, so going back to the thing. When I got this in, I was able to pull the dial, and look at this. These dials were made on this press, on these jigs that made this. It's the same dial. These were discontinued, pardon me. These were made from 1965 through the first half of 1968. They're shown in the Q1 68 catalogs, but then not after that. These were produced starting in the second half of 1968. And of course, these were Daini only. These were made before Daini Sua. So my personal theory, and maybe everybody else knows this, but I don't, is that when these 62 MASs were discontinued, Daini still had the dial, you know, jigs and stamps. And sorry about that, there's a van out in front. So anyway, so it really I mean, I measured these very, very carefully. They're the same. These dials, I can't, there's no way I can't see how these dials weren't made on this, from this original 62 MAS, you know, production equipment. So going with that, Daini had this. All they changed is they went from date only to date. Fine. And they changed the paint color on the surface, but the markers are identical. Interestingly, for Daini, and it shows something, Daini, look at this loom. You'll notice it's sort of white. It's not that Daini green, which you see a lot. You can even see a little bit of it here. It's like a faint green. Daini's the one that produced that. This is a tan loom. Even the pip is tan loom. And it looks like it came that way from the factory. I'm starting to wonder how much dial production Daini did, not just for themselves, but for Sua as well. I wonder if they still have these blanks around. But anyway, it's super cool, because it's nothing that I was really aware of. It's a super pretty watch. It's only, let's see. Let's zero this out. See, yeah, 38.5 is the case, right? 38.73, okay, so we're still at 0. Okay, so almost 39. The rotating ring is just about, well, a little under, just a hair under 40, right? Yeah, just a hair under 40. And it's just slightly proud of the case. This is the same way that Rolex Submariners are. They have the rotating rings slightly outside of the case, which actually makes it a little easier to grab. These are standard 70-meter diver setup. They have a bidirectional, smoothly turning dive ring. But that tan loom, you see this from time to time. Sometimes you see it on 62 MASs, not very often. Where you do see it is some versions, some of the 7002s that were sold in like Southeast Asia, Australasia, had this tan loom instead of the dark gray. The tan loom 7002s have a loom that looks just like this. But it's really nice. I was able to clean up all the loom with my regular stuff, and the dial came up pretty nicely. I've still got to work on the movement, though. I'm getting fantastic amplitude dial up. Dial down, it's dropping like 20-25%. So I gotta go through that and see what's up. But this one had had some water inside. Not a ton, but some. But it's a beautiful watch. I was not ready to like it as much as I did. This bracelet is, of course, not original. It's not what the watch came on, but it's a Maruman. It's an aftermarket bracelet you could buy, you know, go to the watch shop or something in Japan, and you could buy yourself your Maruman. Made in Japan. There are people who collect just Maruman bracelets. Anyway, it's super cool. These 5126s though, I've got to go back through mine and I got to look at it, and I gotta check it. I think I muffed something up, so I gotta go back in. But I think I'm gonna have to give myself a crash course in the 5126. But thankfully, we've got the greatest thing that was ever invented, the manual. And it tells you all kinds of stuff, manual. These are the reversing wheels. This is all this complicated stuff that the watch has in the, oh, look at that, it does. Yeah, right, it's the differential cannon pinion that's down there. Right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Those are actually kind of hard to get your hands on. Huh, cool though. Anyway, these manuals are they're just fun. They're just fun. They're beautiful to look at and great to peruse. And the nice thing is, of course, is that they have knowledge. Because with these, this is actually 5106, which is the high-end version of the 5126. These pages are actually for the 5106, which is a higher end model. Here's a 5106. It's like the Pressmatic. They have some really cool features like instant day-date change, like instant, the day and the date, click, and they go. It's really kind of cool. Oh, and they hand wind. And the crown has a little quick set for the day date. Okay, let's get this running. I want to see that instant day date. So anyway, when I get back up to speed on the 5126s, I'm going to go through this baby. Let's see that instant day change. Huh, do you see that? Look at that, whap. That's pretty neat. So I'm going to go through and check it out, but these are pretty cool. I'm really surprised that I haven't ever seen much chatter about them. They're not terribly expensive. I mean, if you look at a 62 MAS, I mean, they're worth thousands and thousands of dollars. This one can be had for, I don't know, under 500. I mean, granted, this one's in really nice condition, and I did just restore it, but for something that has the closest thing to a 62 MAS dial that isn't a 62 MAS, there it is. The poor man's 62 MAS is further away in the evolutionary lineage of these dials, these watches. So if I were you, I would keep your eye open for one of these babies, 5126 8080. They're beautiful watches, man. They originally came on a different kind of bracelet, one of the standard sport diver bracelets that these came on, sort of an oyster link diddly. There's one. All I need to do is find the end links for it, which I might have. I don't know if they're in here or not, but you have to sort of imagine. That wouldn't be bad looking. It might be a little conservative. I'll look around and see if I got the end links. But, you know, the owner in Japan, the person who wore this thing, they put it in this Maruman. And so far, I dig it on that. That's a cool watch, man. Okay, well, thank you for watching this rambling and silly video. Just wanted to follow up. Okay, goodbye. Okay, because I got curious about it, I started digging through my crap, looking for the correct bracelet for these, even though I like this one. Again, it's a Maruman, made in Japan. Here is another 5126 with a bracelet made for this model. It's actually stamped for this specific model underneath the end links. One of the things that's interesting is it has, sometimes on these really early bracelets, you can see these unusual trademarks, logos and things. This looks like a E or something. Oh, would you stop that? There you go. Now, is that some other logo for Maruman? That's what I'm curious about, because see, that's folded, these are solid. I'm trying to look at the internal construction. I don't know, whatever. So I'm digging through my crap. I did find the correct original bracelet for one of these models. Kind of beat up. I don't know. What do you think? I'll try and put it on there. So I think this is the correct bracelet. I need to look up the catalog shots, but it certainly is true for a lot of the other sport divers that Seiko made at that time. Like a lot of these mid-size ones. Seiko made these, it's a bunch of varieties. 6119, 6319. Did they make them in the 6106? 6119. 6119. That's a later one. 6119. It's another blue. Yeah, 6119. They also, I swear to God, they made these in a couple other models. Anyway, it's interesting because until I got this one in, I hadn't really looked so closely at this one, because these are actually kind of like, in a way, sort of a 62 MAS style, just without any frames in terms of the size of the loom. But digging through a bunch of other stuff, I was also doing some blocking for the upcoming week of jobs. Well, you know, I have to say, I do have just terrible light in here, but, you know, let's try that. So this is a 7005 8052. Yep, this is the actual, official, unofficial, poor man's 62 MAS. This is what they were called long before I ever got into this game. This was actually one of the first rotating ring divers I actually got. Though I was annoyed because mine that I got didn't have this black dial that I really wanted. It was the blue dial. Turns out the blues are actually really rare. Or much rarer anyway. But anyway, of the two, I mean, that dial is identical to the 62 MAS except for the color and the date window. If this thing was a date-only dial, I bet you people would be tracking these things down to rework the dials into new 62 MAS ones. I don't see how you'd be able to do it. I just wish we had the stamps. Imagine, somewhere in the depths of Daini, do they still have the tooling for this thing, for that dial? Because obviously they made it after the death of the 62 MAS. Anyway, it's a nice watch, isn't it? I think it is. I believe these came on this same sort of bracelet. Pretty good looking watch in that bracelet, don't you think? It's a cool watch. Every time I look at it, because you can't really tell because the light here is so awful, but every time I look at this, it just catches my eye. The brightness, clarity, and cleanliness of that dial, those clean marker tops, slight ivory loom, that's really cool. Oh, but speaking of these, look at that. I got some rarer colors. These came in black for the most part. They also came in silver, which is not very easy to see. Then they also came in gold. I've only owned two in my whole life, and I can't believe I sold them. One of the rarest colors apparently is green. This green. This watch is missing its bezel. Case is not great, but it's the original case to this watch. I don't know, I think about that sometimes. Plus I'm missing the bezel. The one that was on it was destroyed. Anyway, that's cool. You don't see those too often. Every time I have one of these, a blue or whatever the heck it is, every time I have one that's ready and in my box that I'm excited to wear, somebody buys it from me. And so I never have one. Here's the Common Rider, 5126 8090 with the backwards Daini spoof. You can see the correct Daini spoof right there. Isn't that crazy? Don't I have two of these? Oh, it's over here. It's interesting because that's a Daini style case. This is the flatter 5126 kind. It's interesting. Yeah, look, that's got the flatter one too. Flatter one. See, those symbols are reversed from each other. That's correct, that's backwards. Even that, this looks like a standard old, regular old Caseback. This is clearly Daini, but 5126 8080, 5126 8090, May 68, May 68, 851024, 850713, Japan G, Japan A. Huh, isn't that interesting? Huh, so maybe these Casebacks were being made by Daini, made for Daini from Suwa, and Suwa got their damn logo backwards. I wonder, wouldn't that be interesting to find out? Anyway, cool stuff. There you go. Daini's Poor Man's 62 MAS. There you go.